just drafting a contract, you now have an attorney who's drafting a contract, drafting a note, drafting a deed of trust, drafting various estoppel agreements. Those types of aspects can all come into play. So your contract goes from being 30 pages to being another 150 with all these extra documents that you've agreed to slide in to make the deal work, to keep everybody as protected as possible and keep the deal moving forward.
We're running a little late, so let's, if there's questions, purchase and sale agreement, you need an attorney.
Yeah.
Aaron's going
On
to tell
both
you that,
sides,
but we'll
really.
tell you that too. It's very complex, and there's a lot of negotiation. A lot of the negotiation after the business terms are agreed upon are just words, legal terms, legal aspects of the contract. So you need a good attorney to represent you on either side, or you could wind up risking a lot more. It could cost you a lot of money later. Feasibility, internal approvals. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on feasibility. We talked about it, but typically when you think you're going to get land, and you think you're going to be the chosen one, the chosen builder, you've already done a lot of homework, which is kind of like feasibility. You've done a lot of research. You learn as much as you can about the property. You certainly don't know everything. Once you sign the contract with the seller, you then typically will have anywhere from a week to 2 months before you have to be what we call firm. That means your deposit goes to the seller. If you then back out, you lose your deposit. During that period of feasibility, you do all your research about environmental issues, title issues, things we've already talked about, all the hair that might be on that property. Part of the feasibility, and I'm not going to get into any detail on it, but you should have a handout that kind of is just a bunch of numbers on the front sheet. I don't know if this was prepared, but this kind of gives you an idea of the way a builder might analyze a property, and they should do this before the end of their feasibility period. A lot of builders will do it while they're negotiating the contract, because frequently negotiating the contract takes anywhere from 2 weeks to 6 months. So you got lots of time to do your feasibility during that period. Run your numbers. And if you look through this handout, you'll see lots of, just a lot of questions that you will want to have answered before you go firm.
Right, so most builders have, when you flip to the next slide, have what you call the land acquisition summary. And typically, whether you're a national home builder and you're putting together your acquisition package to go to your regional office and then your corporate office for approval, or you're meeting with a banker who's going to be investing debt or an investor who's putting equity into a transaction. This is a quick summary sheet that will answer most of the questions, specifically the financial piece. Are you going to make money? How quickly you're going to be in the job? How long you'll be out there? More importantly, it breaks down all the nuances to that acquisition.
One of the aspects of feasibility that I think is really important when you're thinking about the piece of ground, particularly if you're buying a land bank that's in something that's already been zoned and it's part of a much bigger zoning than the piece that you're looking at specifically, is to make sure that there aren't proper obligations that are out there on the larger pieces that could impact your rate of getting building permits and finishing your project. You would never believe the number of times that we've got builders that they're taking along and they're selling lots and trying to get their building permits, and all of a sudden they hit a building permit stop because somebody else, somewhere else in this big project has exceeded the number of building permits that you're supposed to get before you have to build, say, a special pavilion or a road or a traffic signal. And then you're stuck. Can you force them to build the traffic signal? Maybe. Is it better if you just take the bit in your mouth and go ahead and build that traffic signal? It's possible, but that's going to cost you time, and it's going to increase your carrying costs because you're not selling your product. So those types of things need to be looked at as well not just for your specific piece, but for the entire area, if it is part of a larger zoning.
And that's more
Really
the
good
hair
advantage.
that's on
Yeah,
the piece. You have to figure all of that out, if you can. And if you can't, you might be in trouble, get stopped a year down the line, and, look, you're on hold for 6 months. Oh, boy, that's big.
For us, the feasibility is a two-track process. You have one track where you're understanding about the property, you're doing your studies, you're spending your money on title, environmental, development cost, you're figuring it out. And on the other side of that, you're taking all of the components that the assumptions that you've made, and you're building your business plan for that neighborhood for presentation to your land committee, as it is, who make the decision of whether or not a project goes forward or not. That feasibility process, that feasibility time period is when you're spending a lot of time doing all of that work in order to get something put together to present to your people and get a decision before the expiration of that period of time. Meaning that, if we sign a contract and we've got 60 days, we typically have 45 days of actually getting everything together, and then another 15 days of packaging it up, building the model, presenting it, getting approval, or, working out the kinks of the deal before we can tell the seller that we're moving forward or not moving forward.
and one of the aspects of that comes back into play into the purchase agreement is, let's say you've gone through feasibility, you've spent all this money on your consultants and your engineers and your attorneys, you get to the point where you move forward with the entitlements, something happens and the seller defaults, you can, if you were able to do it, negotiate into your damages provision, then you get the cost that you spent during feasibility and up to that point, to as much as you can get back from your seller, so that you don't have to go into some expensive litigation just to try and recoup what you've lost. So that's another aspect of the contract that you want built in there from the get-go if you can get a seller to agree to it.
All right, if everyone's okay, why don't we take a break, and then we'll try and move through the rest of it, maybe a 10-minute break? Is that good?